Hello viewers, my name is G. Mahesh. I am with the National Science Library of the National Institute of Science Communication and Information Resources. As you are aware, we will be discussing about the topic on digital libraries. Now, as students of library and information science, you are familiar with libraries. All of you know that libraries are institutions that have collections, usually collections of books, and there are different types of libraries. This can be public libraries that are open to the public. There are academic libraries such as college libraries, university libraries. Then there are school libraries. There are research libraries attached to research institutions. There are corporate libraries attached to industrial houses and corporate houses, so on and so forth. Now, such libraries, all these libraries, for decades now or even for centuries, have predominantly contained books, printed books. But then, the times are now changing, or in the last couple of decades, we will see that the collections in libraries that have been print-based are evolving into digital information sources, or rather digital collections. So we will be talking about and such libraries that have digital collection are called digital libraries. So in this session, we will be discussing about what are digital libraries and what are some of the attributes of the digital libraries, and also look at some of the drawbacks or the disadvantages of digital libraries. Now, I had mentioned in the beginning that libraries have been predominantly print-based. Now, that has not been so ever since libraries came into being centuries ago. In the earliest types of libraries, I'm sure you might have heard about some of the ancient libraries, such as the the famous Alexandria library, or even in India, the Nalanda University libraries. These are centuries old libraries. Now, some of these libraries existed even before the print books as we know today came into being. So what did these ancient libraries have for collection? These ancient libraries, for example, the Library of Alexandria, for example, had thousands of papyrus scrolls. Then the Library of Ashurbanipal, that goes back to the 7th century BC, had cuneiform tablets or clay tablets as its collections. So these clay tablets or the cuneiform tablets are said to contain religious texts, and this existed in today's northern Iraq. The Library of Alexandria, as I mentioned, in Egypt, contained papyrus scrolls. Then the Library of Pergamum, that goes back to the 8th century BC, around the time of the Library of Ashurbanipal, also contained in modern day Turkey. It contained about 200,000 volumes, and the Nalanda University Library that I was talking about, that got burned down in the 12th century, contained about 9 million manuscripts. So these libraries, even before the appearance of the printed books that we very well know of, contained information sources of different formats, like clay tablets, like papyrus scrolls, like manuscripts, and so on. But things changed when the printing press was invented in the year 1450, and when it became easy to print books that we know of today. So the printing press allowed this possibility of easily printing information or recording information, and in fact disseminating information far and wide. So the point is, mankind has always been in search of a suitable media, or I would say an ideal medium for recording information and for disseminating information. So if we look back at history, all of us know that mankind over a period of time have chosen stones as a medium for recording information, have used fabric or textile for recording information, have used clay tablets for recording information, have used manuscripts for recording information, the palm leaf manuscripts for recording information. So there have been different information media, the medium in which on which information is recorded, and libraries, as we know, collect these information sources and make it available to the needy. It can be students, it can be the general public, it can be researchers. So they make it available to the information needy. So this is something that we all know of. Now, after the invention of the printing press in 1450, the printed paper or the printed book has been the preferred mode of information recording as well as information dissemination. Or in other words, printed books have been a very important information source, and libraries have been collecting books, the printed books, for its users. It's not that there has been no other medium on which information has been recorded after the advent of the printing press or the books as we know today. There have been tapes, magnetic tapes, for recording information, such as microfilms, microfiches, on which information has been recorded. I'm sure you would have in another course learned about microfilms and microfiches on which as a storage media or as information sources. So every medium has its advantages and disadvantages. So when you studied about microfilms or microfiches, you would have learned that microfilms need specialized devices for reading the information and also for recording the information. So this dependency on devices for recording information and on retrieving information poses certain limitations. Whereas with respect to paper, it is a very convenient form of information recording and dissemination. But there are some disadvantages, as we very well know, like the possibility of damage to the paper-based information sources and the life of paper and so on and so forth. Then the damages by insects. So there are, so this goes, this holds true for all kinds of information recording medium. There are advantages as well as disadvantages. Now, if you go back and look at the 1970s and 80s, that was a time when computers were becoming commonplace. So computers began appearing in for automating operations in several walks of our lives. We will see the application of computers in many of the service organizations for automating their operations, and so much so that libraries also began to make appearance in the libraries. In the early years, that is the 70s and 80s, we will see the use of computers in libraries for automating the processes in libraries. I believe that you would have in another course learned about the housekeeping operations in libraries, the issue and return of books, the access of the catalog. Some of you may not have seen card-based catalogs, but prior to the advent of computers in libraries or application of computers in libraries, libraries used to have the catalog, the printed catalog based access to content. So if you require to access a book or collect a book or issue a book from the library, one needed to look at this printed catalog, and based on the information in the catalog, one would go to the shelf and retrieve the book from the racks. Now these processes, which are called as housekeeping operations in libraries, began to be automated in libraries, and such libraries that had computers in the libraries to take care of its housekeeping operations were called automated libraries. So even today we will find a number of libraries in India where the collection of the libraries is in print form, or in other words, these are print-based libraries. The information is all in printed books and journals and magazines and other such material, whereas the housekeeping operations are automated. So such libraries are called automated libraries. But with passage of time, what we see is that the 80s and 90s, the computing technology grew by leaps and bounds. Computers became more and more powerful, and we also see the marriage between the computer and telecommunication technology, the information technology and the communication technology, the merger of these technology, where it became possible to make standalone computers talk to each other, exchange information between each other, and I'm sure all of you are aware of the networking of computers and the eventual rise of or emergence of internet. So that was happening on one side, but on the other side, the storage capacities of computers were also increasing, and also other types of media came into being, and one of which, if you see in the 80s and 90s, was the optical medium, the CD-ROMs and the DVD ROMs, which of course came much later. So the CD-ROMs that made an appearance in the institutions, in libraries in particular, became an important storage medium. So the books that were being brought out in print form began to appear on CD-ROMs or these optical devices. And that was also a time when databases began to be created. Many databases, the bibliographic databases, full text databases, and several commercial databases, patent databases. So all this information that was there in the printed form or that existed in print-based sources began to appear on the optical disc or on these digital medium. And these optical discs had several advantages. We know that optical discs can store a phenomenally large amount of information, 6,000 to 7,000, 8,000 pages of information. And it was lightweight. It was easy to transport the optical disc. And also, most importantly, or interestingly, at that point in time, we knew that the optical devices could store information in multiple formats. It could store printed information, it could store audio, video, images, interactive content. So multimedia that we were that it was always thought of came into being. And when CD-ROMs came, it was felt that maybe mankind has eventually found a medium, an ideal medium that we have been on the lookout for since prehistoric times, since ancient times, when we started off with inscriptions on, as we discussed, on stones or on textile or on palm leaves. And so we have tried different medium, and then paper became the most preferred medium. Paper still continues to be one of the most preferred medium for recording information, for disseminating information. But when CD-ROMs came, it was thought that here is a new medium which has got several advantages over its paper counterpart. But then, and then many libraries during that time, during the late 80s and early 90s, began to build CD-ROM collections. They began to acquire a large number of CD-ROMs and began to create the so-called electronic libraries that had CD-ROMs or optical medium as its sources of information. So many libraries, as I said, had these electronic collections. Some of it were called electronic libraries, or it was called the electronic collection in the traditional libraries. But we could see that definite shift that was happening in libraries, the move or the migration from print-based media to the electronic media. So electronic libraries came into being, but then we also know that that was around the time, the early 90s was when internet began to make its appearance more widely. And by the mid-90s, internet began to be used in institutions. We had dial-up connections, and people could access information on the internet. Now, internet could do whatever the optical medium could provide, which means you could store information in textual, visual. We had that multimedia advantage, plus the additional advantage of the currency of information, which means in real time information could be updated and at the same time accessed, which was not possible in the case of CD-ROMs. CD-ROMs could have multimedia information, but then it did not offer the advantage of the currency or recency of information, or the live access of information was not possible, which became possible with the information being available, with the information sources being available on the internet. So that is how digital libraries came into being. During the mid-90s and late 90s, people began to migrate or move and in fact create content on the internet, so create digital collections on the internet. So what are the attributes of such a library, of a digital library that has got digital collection? One, of course, is that it does not have a physical boundary like the traditional libraries had. We did not need a brick and mortar building to go and access information. So one could access information sitting at one's home or whatever place one was. And of course, as I said, materials are in digital form, and it could be, apart from there not being any physical boundary, one could access this information from anywhere and at any time, and also multiple people could access the same information, which again was not possible in physical libraries. So if someone had issued a book, one had to wait till that book was returned to the library for someone to access it. But with digital libraries, it became possible for anyone to access information from anywhere at any time, and also in a preferred format. We could even call it any format. So one could access the same information in an image form, in a video form, in a textual form, or even as an interactive content form. So these things became easily possible with digital collections. And of course, there was an enormous saving on physical space. All of you know, you have visited libraries, how libraries take up a phenomenal amount of space for storing printed material. So the physical space could be stored, and accessing information. Of course, in automated library, one had online catalogs for accessing information about a book. But with digital libraries, the level at which one can search for information further enhanced. So one could search for content within a book. So in the automated libraries, one could search for a book based on the information about the book. But with digital libraries, one could get into the book, pick up keywords, search the keywords that are there in the book and retrieve information. Or in other words, it became easy to access information, like how it's fairly easy to access information on the internet. And the different types of materials that we discussed. And also it became possible to interlink libraries, connect libraries with one another, and seamlessly search across different digital libraries. So all this became possible with collections turning digital or with the digital libraries. But that does not mean that there are no limitations at all for digital libraries. With all these advantages that has made information access very easy, instantaneous, there are some drawbacks. One of these drawbacks is related to the copyright. We all know that these books are created by an author, and converting a physical book into a digital formats have certain considerations, legal considerations, which are bound by, which fall under the framework of copyright laws. So if a book is under the framework of copyright or governed by copyright laws, then one needs to be careful about storing such books. There are permissions to be taken, and there are books that are in copyright, there are books that are out of copyright. So one needs to be very careful about copyright. The other is the security issues. On the digital platform, all of us are aware, all of us use internet, all of us are aware about the various threats that the security threats that come with digital platforms. So it can be man-made in the sense that it can be viruses which affect digital information, or it can be hacking where people using different means, illegal means, they hack into systems and access information. So there are some considerations like this that are related to the security aspect of digital content. But then there are also technological interventions that can safeguard digital content from these security breaches. But then we need to be aware that there are such problems related to copyright, problems related to security issues, then also those related to the preservation of digital content. For example, some take a printed book. We know what is the definite life of a printed book. A book, if maintained properly, if maintained with proper humidity, temperature, and all that, a book has got a reasonably long shelf life. But with digital content or digital information, the life of digital content being a new media, there we are not aware about the storage of information for posterity. There are digital preservation techniques, there are digital preservation tools that strive to preserve digital content for posterity, things like digital migration, because we know that digital technologies advance very rapidly. The storage medium or the storage media that we know of have been changing rapidly. Formats have been changing. The formats, file formats that were prevalent 20 years ago is not relevant anymore. They don't work anymore. So such disadvantages that are caused by rapid migrations pose preservation challenges. So there are preservation. So when you create a digital library, one needs to bear in mind that we need to take care of these aspects: copyright aspects, security aspects, the preservation aspects, the interoperability issues, the different file formats being incompatible, the softwares being incompatible, so the data structures. So there are several issues that relate to technology that can pose drawbacks, and also trained manpower. We also need trained manpower for setting up digital libraries, for running digital libraries, for taking care of some of these issues that we spoke about as and when they rise. So these put the question mark there as drawbacks, because one need not really treat this as drawbacks, because there are ways and means to take care of this. But then we need to understand that when we think of a digital library, we also need to be aware that these aspects, I would say, need to be taken care of. And also one needs to create quality metadata, like how in a printed catalog we need to have quality catalog cards. So here we need to capture quality metadata about the digital content. So in summary, what is a digital library? So digital libraries, like the traditional library or like the physical libraries, are organizations just because they don't have brick and mortar building. We tend to think of digital libraries as existing invisibly, but that is not really the case. Digital libraries are also organizations that provide resources, that require specialized staff to operate and manage and run the digital library, and they select, structure, and offer intellectual access to interpret, distribute, and preserve the integrity to ensure the persistence over time of collections. We are talking about how we need to take care of preservation aspects so that the digital collection can exist or can persist over a period of time. And they should also be economically available for use by the defined community or set of communities. So here we are talking about it can be a research library, or it can be the school library, or the communities as we know in the physical world. So it is very similar for the digital library as well. So this is a definition that goes back to 1998 by the Digital Library Federation, but which comprehensively sums up what a digital library is, and which says that digital library are also organizations like physical libraries that have all these entities which need to be taken care of. So, dear viewers, with this we conclude this brief session on digital libraries. Thank you very much.